At 60, 70, or even 80, many people begin to quietly accept a difficult idea. That closeness, or more precisely intimacy, is something that belongs to the past. They assume it's no longer relevant, that this need has simply expired. No one says it aloud. Even within families or between couples who shared decades together, the topic is often avoided, treated like a taboo. But according to Dr. David, a senior health expert with over 30 years of experience, that belief is a painful misunderstanding. Intimacy isn't just a luxury, he says. It's a vital need for your physical, mental, and emotional health. Thousands of his patients have confessed the same thing. They believed that losing physical closeness was just part of growing older. But the truth is, the human body and spirit don't let go of that need so easily. When intimacy begins to fade, subtle changes start to ripple through. It's not just about loneliness. It's memory becoming foggier, moods dipping lower, energy drying up, sleep turning shallow, and worst of all, a deepening sense of detachment from life itself. Most people don't realize that when they give up intimacy, they're also giving up one of the most powerful sources of nourishment for the heart and soul. In those quiet moments when someone sighs alone or feels they are no longer touchable, not just by hand, but by care and presence, that's not just sadness. That is the body and soul disconnecting from a basic human need, connection. Dr. David shares that he sat with many individuals, men and women in their 60s and beyond, who told him they feel like a part of them has dimmed. Not because of illness, not because of grief, but because they no longer feel seen as whole people, still needing to love, to be held, to be close. He emphasizes, giving up intimacy doesn't make you older. It's the loss of connection that accelerates aging, physically and emotionally. Modern science confirms this. A hug, a gentle hand on the arm, a soft kiss. These simple gestures trigger the release of oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins, powerful brain chemicals that lift mood, sharpen focus, reduce stress, and protect memory. Without closeness, the brain misses this essential emotional fuel, and over time, this can lead to cognitive decline, depression, and a creeping sense that life is fading away. But here's the good news. It's never too late to reconnect. Intimacy doesn't require the strength or passion of youth. It doesn't demand perfection. All it needs is presence, a loving presence, a tender moment, enough to whisper, "We're still here for each other." Even if it's been years since someone touched you with care, even if your relationship has grown cold or you're living alone, the desire to be held, to be loved, has never left you. It's just been buried beneath years of silence, assumptions, and age-old beliefs. Dr. David often tells his patients, don't wait until it's too late to realize you still deserve connection. Sometimes one small step, a heartfelt conversation, a hand held, a quiet "I miss you," is all it takes to awaken the fire within. So if today you find yourself wondering whether intimacy still matters at your age, let this be your answer. Yes, more than ever. Not because you've become young again, but because you're still alive. And with every beat, your heart is still longing to feel connected.
When intimacy fades, the brain quietly slips away too. There's a truth few people talk about. When intimacy disappears from a person's life, the brain is often one of the first places to feel the impact. You don't need obvious signs like forgetfulness or confusion for the decline to begin. Even subtle changes, trouble concentrating, feeling mentally foggy, or experiencing long-lasting fatigue, can all stem from the quiet absence of what many assume is just emotional. Dr. David, a specialist in senior health with more than 3 decades of experience, once said, "Intimacy, even something as simple as a warm touch, a gentle hug, or lying next to someone in stillness, is emotional nourishment for the brain. When that disappears, the brain no longer receives the natural stimulation it needs, and it begins to slow down." You might wonder, How could something emotional possibly affect memory or alertness? But modern science has already confirmed it. During moments of physical closeness, our bodies release a series of powerful neurochemicals: dopamine, happiness; oxytocin, connection; and endorphins, relaxation and relief. These compounds help the brain stay agile, responsive, and joyful. When we go long periods without physical closeness, these chemicals are no longer produced consistently, and the brain begins to feel starved. And the consequences are far from minor. "Doctor, I forgot the name of the neighbor who lived next to me for 20 years. I don't feel as sharp as I used to." Those were the words of Mr. George, a 72-year-old retired math teacher, during a consultation with Dr. David. George wasn't suffering from Alzheimer's. There were no signs of stroke or neurological injury. All his health metrics were within normal range. But what worried him the most was the sense that his brain was fading. After several open and honest conversations, George admitted something deeply personal. Since his wife passed away 5 years ago, he hadn't experienced any form of physical closeness, not even a hug. "I didn't think it was important," he said. "I'm old. I figured that part of life just wasn't needed anymore." But reality told a different story. Dr. David explained that the loss of intimacy doesn't only affect the heart. It robs the brain of function. Brain regions linked to memory, learning, and emotion, such as the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, depend on activity and emotional engagement to remain healthy. When deep connection disappears, those areas begin to slow down, losing their sharpness. And the saddest part? Most people don't realize what's happening inside them until one day they hesitate at a familiar street corner, forget why they entered a room, or lose interest in everything they once loved: books, conversations, even cherished hobbies. And it's not limited to those who have lost a spouse. Even people still in long-term relationships may experience the same gradual fading if their marriage has grown cold. If touch has become rare, tender glances have disappeared, and genuine emotional care is no longer exchanged. Because intimacy is not just about sexual activity. It's the way we tell our brain, "I'm still connected, I still matter, I'm still loved." The good news is that just like an old road can be resurfaced, the brain also has a miraculous ability to recover, as long as we reopen the channels of connection. It doesn't require grand gestures. It only asks for a little warmth, a little courage to open your heart again, and a little willingness to say, "I want to feel close again. I want to care and be cared for." Never believe it's too late. Even the most hesitant first step can be the very one that saves a brain quietly losing its way. You don't have to become young again. You only have to show up with someone else or simply with yourself with sincerity. Because in the end, the brain doesn't age because of numbers. It ages from emotional starvation and disconnection. And the most beautiful truth of all is this: you can begin healing it, starting right now. When the body goes silent, blood slows down and hormones fall out of balance. We often think of sex as part of love, emotion, or simply a physical need. But there is a deeper, rarely discussed perspective: the subtle biological role of intimacy in regulating circulation and hormones, especially as we age. At 60, 70, or beyond, many people begin to feel their bodies are not like before. Slower movement, a heart that tires more easily, restless sleep, unexplained weight gain. Yet what few realize is that the quiet withdrawal from physical intimacy may be one of the hidden causes behind these changes. Dr. David, who has worked with thousands of older adults, shared this insight. Sex is not just about pleasure. It plays a crucial role in keeping the circulatory system strong and hormones properly balanced. When intimacy disappears, the body begins to quietly change. Circulation is life. Every heartbeat delivers oxygen and nutrients to each cell in the body. When we still experience closeness, even through a hug, a soft caress, or physical connection, the circulatory system is naturally stimulated. The heart rate gently rises, blood vessels expand, and blood flows more vigorously, especially to vital organs like the brain, heart, lungs, and even the skin. But when those acts of touch and affection fade, not out of a lack of love, but due to awkwardness, self-consciousness, or the thought that we're too old for this, blood flow slows down. Capillaries lose flexibility. Oxygen delivery to major organs decreases. You feel more tired, less energetic, even dizzy when you stand up, not just due to age, but because the body is no longer receiving the natural activation it once did. And that's only half the story. Hormones, those powerful messengers that influence everything from mood to bone strength, skin tone, metabolism, and sleep, also suffer deeply. For men, a prolonged lack of intimacy leads to a sharp drop in testosterone. This is the hormone tied to muscle strength, mental focus, confidence, vitality, and even the will to live. When testosterone falls, a man may feel like he's aging faster, losing motivation, becoming irritable, or feeling inexplicably down. For women, estrogen and oxytocin are the two critical hormones. Estrogen protects bone density, stabilizes mood, and keeps the skin supple. Oxytocin, often called the love hormone, creates a sense of bonding, safety, and relaxation. When physical affection disappears, no more tender touches, cuddling, or closeness, these hormones decrease, and a woman may feel more vulnerable, experience joint pain, or go through emotional lows without a clear reason. Dr. David once met a couple, Linda and Carl, both in their 60s, married for nearly 40 years. They had not been intimate for several years, not because of a lack of love, but because they both hesitated to begin again. Linda spoke gently, almost apologetically. "We just assumed that part of life was over." Carl sat in silence for a moment and then said quietly, "I don't feel like a man anymore. I feel weak, tired, and like I've lost the drive to do anything." His body had lost muscle rapidly, his weight was creeping up, and emotionally he felt flat. But when Dr. David encouraged them to take small steps, like holding hands at night, hugging before sleep, something remarkable happened. Their bodies responded, their heartbeats became steadier, and their hormone levels began to come alive again. The most important point Dr. David always stresses is this: intimacy doesn't have to be full-blown or youthful. It can be as simple as a warm look, a shoulder leaned on, a gentle kiss, enough to awaken long-dormant energy within. So if you're feeling weaker, more fatigued, or emotionally low for no clear reason, don't just assume it's aging. Ask yourself, how long has it been since I allowed my body to feel connection, stimulation, and closeness? Because at its core, the body doesn't stop living unless we stop connecting with it. And you can return to that connection with just one gentle touch, one sincere intention, and one small step to rekindle life's natural flow.
When distance is no longer skin deep, but reaches the heart. There is a very particular kind of silence, the kind that exists between two people who once loved each other deeply, once held each other every night, once whispered words meant only for one another. And then, over time, that silence ceases to be temporary. It becomes a wall, an invisible barrier dividing two people who share the same bed, live under the same roof, but no longer share the same emotional rhythm. Dr. David calls this unspoken distance, one of the clearest consequences of how intimacy slowly slips out of relationships after the age of 60. He once sat quietly listening to a woman named Margaret, 74 years old, talk about her husband. He had survived cancer, something that one would think would bring them closer together. But instead, after the long course of treatment, their physical intimacy had completely vanished. Neither of them intentionally created the distance. It just happened. Like a door slowly closing, until neither had the courage to reopen it. Margaret whispered, "I don't want him to feel responsible or pressured, but I miss being touched. I miss the feeling of being someone's partner, not just their caretaker."
It was a confession that many older people carry quietly within, never speaking aloud, for fear of being misunderstood, for fear of seeming weak, or simply because it has been too long since anyone reached toward those hidden longings. When intimacy fades, whether due to illness, routine, or mutual hesitation to reignite something long dormant, the relationship itself begins to dry out. No more tender glances, no more holding hands on evening walks, no more spontaneous kisses or sudden romantic words. Instead, the two live alongside each other like polite roommates, kind, respectful, but no longer emotionally connected. Gradually, they stop touching, then stop really looking at one another, then stop sharing their private thoughts. The emptiness doesn't make noise, but it's there, palpable in blank stares, silent meals, and that lingering feeling of waiting for something neither dares to start. And if you're living alone, whether you've lost your partner or never had someone to truly walk beside you, that lack of connection can sink even deeper. Because no one touches you, no one tells you you're still lovable, still worthy of being embraced, still desired. And gradually, you start believing those things yourself. That's how self-worth, the foundation of the human spirit, can quietly erode. You no longer see yourself as an attractive man. You no longer feel like a woman who can stir someone's heart. You begin to assume that getting older means losing your right to be touched and to love. From there, loneliness doesn't remain a passing feeling. It becomes emotional isolation. You may be surrounded by grandchildren. You may live in a home full of laughter. But inside, there is still an emptiness, like a room within you that has remained unopened for years. But the truth is this: it's never too late to open that door again. Because connection doesn't have to begin with sex. It can start with a meaningful look, a light touch, a simple phrase like, "I miss you," or "I felt older since I stopped holding you." And the truth is, one small step can begin to thaw the ice. An honest conversation. An evening sitting close, talking about things long left unsaid. A soft apology. Or even just looking through old photographs together. Dr. David once said, "Intimacy doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be present." And when it returns, even in the smallest way, the relationship begins to breathe again. You don't need to know exactly what to do next. Just take one first step, even if it feels awkward, and it may become something miraculous. And if you're on your own, remember, connection doesn't always come from someone else. Sometimes it begins from within, when you allow yourself to be touched, to be loved, to start again. Because you are still here, and you are still worthy of love. Today, right now.
Intimacy, a forgotten medicine for longevity. When people talk about longevity, they often think of diet, sleep, exercise, or managing blood pressure. And yes, all of those things are important. But there's another factor, one that's rarely mentioned and sometimes considered sensitive, that plays a vital role in extending life: intimacy. Intimacy isn't just about sex. It includes any form of loving, physical connection. A warm hug, a gentle kiss, or even a simple hand holding another hand. These seemingly small actions carry profound power to heal, protect, and sustain life. Dr. David, after decades of working with older adults, noticed something remarkable. Those who maintained physical closeness often appeared brighter, happier, and lived longer. Not because they were healthier to begin with, but because they nurtured within themselves a kind of natural medicine that the body is biologically designed to produce, through touch and closeness. Did you know that when you're touched in a loving way, your body releases oxytocin, also known as the connection hormone? Oxytocin calms the nervous system, lowers blood pressure, stabilizes heart rate, and reduces anxiety. It's like a soft hug for the heart, both literally and emotionally.
In addition, endorphins, the feel-good hormones, are also released when you experience joy and physical closeness. Endorphins don't just make you feel pleasant, they also help reduce inflammation, boost the immune system, and improve the quality of sleep. Science backs this up. A study published in the British medical journal, BMJ, found that older adults who maintained an active, intimate life had significantly lower mortality rates compared to those who had little or no physical connection. This doesn't mean you need to maintain intimacy at the pace or standard of youth. It simply means staying close in whatever way feels right for you. Dr. David once shared the story of a patient named Robert, 81 years old, slender in build, but with eyes that were full of light and life. When asked the secret to his vitality, he smiled and said, "I still hug my wife every night, and sometimes we still whisper sweet things to each other, like we did when we were young." People often think of old age as a time to slow down, to rest, to let go of life's excitements. But the truth is, as we age, we need connection more than ever, not just emotionally, but physically. When intimacy fades, cortisol, the stress hormone, rises, the immune system weakens, and sleep becomes light and broken. The body, instead of recovering, begins to decline, not because of aging itself, but because of the lack of one essential ingredient, the feeling of being touched, being loved, being alive as a whole human being. And from there, the risk of chronic illness rises: heart disease, diabetes, cognitive decline, depression. These don't arrive all at once. They creep in through the long nights without someone to hold, the mornings without anyone to ask how you slept, the months without tenderness or closeness. Yet, as Dr. David always emphasizes, you don't need to make love to live longer. You just need to make human connection. Connection through closeness, through warmth, through those small, precious moments between two hands, two eyes, two beating hearts. If you're living alone, that doesn't mean every door has closed. A hug from your grandchildren, a hand squeeze from a close friend, even therapeutic touch, massage, or simply sharing a laugh with someone can help your body come back to life. And if you do have a partner, no matter how distant things may have become, don't believe it's too late. A gentle apology, a hand resting beside theirs, a softer glance over dinner. These may be the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter your body and your heart have long been waiting for. Longevity doesn't come from medicine. It comes from how we live. And intimacy is one of the deepest parts of life itself. Let your body feel that you are still here, that you are still connected, and that you are still worthy of love, even when time has left its marks.
It's never too late, because the heart doesn't count years. If you've made it this far, reading through the reflections, the truths that are sometimes hard to accept, then perhaps there's still a part of you that's very much alive, the part that longs to connect, to feel, to begin again. And that, more than anything, is something precious. Because in a world that constantly reminds us of age, of decline, of all the things that are not the same anymore, your ability to believe that something can still change is the very flame that keeps life burning. Dr. David, after over 30 years working closely with older adults, has witnessed countless moments where a heart that once seemed cold was gently reignited. Not through some miracle, but through one small, powerful act, the choice to move toward closeness instead of remaining in retreat. He shared the story of Eleanor, a 78-year-old woman who had been widowed for nearly a decade. When she entered his clinic, Eleanor wasn't looking for a cure. She simply said, her voice quivering, "I miss feeling like a woman. Not someone's grandmother, not someone's patient. Just me, a person who still feels." For nearly 10 years, Eleanor had not touched anyone and had not allowed herself to be touched.
Not because she didn't want to, but because she had come to believe that part of her life was over. But the truth, as Dr. David often says, is this: nothing within us truly dies unless we completely abandon it. And so it is that no matter how much time has passed, no matter how long the silence is stretched, closeness can return. Not through loud or passionate gestures, but through a sincere breath, an unashamed glance, a simple whisper. I'm still here, and I still remember what we once had. If you're in a marriage that's grown quiet, know this: even one small step, a hand held, a phone-free dinner, a soft goodnight whisper, can become the thread that stitches a once-bonded heart back together. And if you're living alone, don't think this message doesn't apply to you. Because connection doesn't always require another person. It can begin with how you care for yourself, with love. Cooking yourself a beautiful meal. Touching your own skin with gentleness. Writing a letter to yourself, the kind you once wished someone would send. We were never taught how to be intimate as we age. We were only taught how to grow old quietly. But the truth is, aging is not an ending. It's an invitation to live honestly, deeply, and with real connection. You don't need to know exactly where to begin. You just need to give yourself permission to want it. You might feel awkward. You might fear rejection. You might not receive what you hoped for. But if you never take a step, you'll never know what within you still has room to blossom, even on a day that seems too late. Remember this: you are not too old to love. You are not too late to be touched. You are not invisible in this world, and your story is far from over. The heart doesn't count birthdays. It only knows presence or absence of connection. And if you woke up this morning with even the faintest sense of longing, that might just be your soul whispering, "Maybe I should try again." So try. Say something soft. Move toward closeness. Let yourself come back to life, not in memory, but in this moment. Because sometimes the best chapter of your life comes after the final page you thought had already closed.